Time we'll call to order the April 8th regular city council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lisa. And let the roll call show that Councilmember Richards will not be with us this evening.
I'll make the motion to excuse Councilmember Richards.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. On to the approval of the minutes, March 25th, 2019.
A couple things.
Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
On page 5, I don't know, probably a quarter of the way down, it says there are some advantages because you get more from an annual fee. It should be added in right at that point at the federal. Okay, and on page 8. I'll let you get ready.
Mr. Mayor,
Tim, go ahead.
I had provided some comments to council by email.
Oh, I'm not done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was letting her get prepared, so she was moving, yeah. Okay, in the second line of council comments, grant toward the end of that sentence should be grand. And the next line, good, you should interject regarding parentheses framing and information exchange. And underneath, let's see, toward the bottom of that paragraph, the word activity should actually be understanding of. That's all I had, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Okay, on page 6, Lisa, probably about a third of the way up from the bottom, there's a sentence that starts out, there is a uniformity that will have to be addressed. It's the sentence just below that where it says them to see why. That should actually be they. Why they can't fit their components in that configuration. That's all I had.
Tim, did you?
Mr. Mayor and council, I had provided some comments on the minutes for 3/25/19 by email to council. The first is just to reference that the votes that were unanimous reference that. The other relates to council motion 3.7 and 3.8 dealing with the award of the contract for the Aqua Guard rebuild to Parks Incorporated. It's really just a readability issue. It's hard. The way it's structured, it says one vote on an amended motion and then the amendment. My suggestion would be that it's state the motion to amend the original motion with the vote, and then the final vote on the motion as amended.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
I had an opportunity to call a friend of mine that sits on a council in another community, and because I read that and it was a little bit confusing. His suggestion, this is just a suggestion, is that, and it makes sense, is that if you're going to amend the motion, the important thing is did the amendment pass? If the amendment doesn't pass, then the original motion stays the way it is. If the amendment passes, then the motion is already amended. So you don't really need to put the count in for the motion, for the amendment. What you do is you state the motion as amendment, and then you give the vote count, which was 4-1. So it's not I saw your email stating, well, it's a little confusing, the amendment passed 5-0, the motion passed 4-1. Bottom line is, what did the motion pass? What was the count on the motion as amendment? 4-1. That's the only count that counts. So you basically just need to state the motion with the amendment in it so it makes sense. Say as amended, and then you give the count 4-1. But that's whatever you decide. I'm just,
Well, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I don't have a real suggestion. I know that we've had amendments. I don't remember coming across this particular issue before. I just want to make sure that the waiver, it's clear that that was included in the motion and it was approved with that waiver of the purchasing competitive bidding requirement and the reason for it. How it's done, I don't have strong position one way or the other.
Thanks, Tim.
Well, having been here, I understood what had happened, but I didn't take note while I was reading it whether or not that's what's conveyed in the page. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
so it may be, and I believe Councilmember Kurzweil may be correct, is not to get so hung up on the parliamentary motion part of it, but really on what the ultimate action by council
Yep.
was.
if the outcome came out correct, then I'm cool with that, yeah.
With anything on
Move the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. All opposed? Move on to the approval of the bills this evening.
I just have one.
Councilmember Kill, go ahead.
Chief Vogel, could you let me know what the repair on engine 2 had been?
The leaf springs broke.
Oh, okay. That's important. All right. Thank you. That's all I had. Thanks.
I move to approval of the bills.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the attorney bills this evening.
I move the attorney bills.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. On to the approval of this evening's agenda.
I move the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Approval of this evening's consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we will open the floor for public comment. Please state your name and address.
Hello, Bob Ziegler and Thad Bogart with South Lyon Area Youth Assistance. And we came tonight to thank the council for approving the financial support that we receive. And I passed out the annual report that was may have been, I think it was mailed to everyone, but I thought I'd bring them just so you can get another reminder of all the things that we do. We, of course, have a full-time caseworker. There is probably the biggest aspect of that. And when some children or young adults get involved with the law, they can be referred to the caseworker, and then she sends a letter to invite the family to come in and work out the solution. And the counseling is available to all the students, so counselors, the school counselors refer cases to her as well, and then teachers, and then some even come, they call up and say, I need some help with my problems. Some of the programs we have is our summer camp, which is a way that children can get away temporarily from their family, which is just gives the parents a nice break and the children get a new environment. It's really, really nice. And then the back-to-school shopping for what we have funds and then we get donations to help buy clothes and some school supplies for the children going back to school. And then there's a few other programs. And then Thad is looking for, well, he'll explain the mentors program that we have. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Thad Bogert. I'm the chairperson for Mentors Plus for Youth Assistance. Currently, we have an urgent need for male mentors in the South Lyon area. Mentors Plus is a program that matches adults with kids who could use a friend. The commitment to being a mentor is 1 hour a week. And studies have shown that that little amount of time can have a large impact on a young person's outlook. In the past 6 years, I've had the opportunity to mentor 2 young men, and it's been a great experience to see how their lives have changed over time. And it's also been a great opportunity for me to do all the geeky things I can't do with my wife. If you're interested in learning more about mentoring, please visit our website, which is slaya.org, slaya.org, or visit our Facebook page to watch a video about the program. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Phil Wypert, 135 North Warren.
Abe, same address.
Well, we want to thank you for passing the Kiwanis Easter egg scramble on consent agenda tonight. Just a reminder, it will be Saturday, April 20th at Volunteer Park. The scramble starts at noon. We'll have lineup about at 11 o'clock. There may be some moon bounces and things like that. Easter Bunny, Abe's got the fire department.
Well, fire department from South Lyon, police from South Lyon, Lyon Township Sheriff's Department, fire department will always be there. I'm going to contact HVA to be there because we usually do wind up with at least one medical incident a year with 1,000, 2,000 people. It's normal. Any volunteers that want to help, just give me a call because we can always use it. And anybody is welcome. Every year we get asked the same questions. We live outside the district. Every child is welcome. I don't care where they're from. It's just a free event. It's non-commercialized. It's just a great event for the community.
And one thing special this year is our meeting is always on second and fourth Mondays like your meetings. So that's why we always come late. This year, the Easter egg stuffing is next Monday. So it's going to be the third Monday. So you are all invited to come in, put candy and eggs because we're gonna stuff 14 or 15,000 plastic eggs next Monday at the Kiwanis Hall, and then pass them out on Saturday, April 20th at Volunteer Park, about 6 o'clock next Monday. So we'll see all the council there. Any questions?
No, but thank you guys
Thank
for
you.
everything and
Thank
and the
you.
Kiwanis. Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll close public comment and invite Mr. Donahue down for a discussion about the downtown.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Real quick, a couple highlights off of the report that Paul provided to you in your packet. Cool Yule. Jeff Heinen and I will be serving as co-chair this year. So we'll be working with the Cool Yule Committee. We think we're going to possibly expand it to 2 days, a Friday and a Saturday event. And number one, I've been listening to rumors through the community. The city is not paying for the tree. So that's Jeff Heinen and a 501c3 that's being established, but the city's not paying for the tree. But we're excited to see the event expand, and it'll be exciting. And I think the committee's doing a great job, and we'll continue to work with that. One of the highlights is that the village itself will be lit for the entire season, while the tree becomes the city tree in effect. The lighting of the village is a special event unto its own, and keeping it lit the whole season. So I think it'll be great. Been putting a lot of time in with the exciting sale of the two 111 North Lafayette and 135 East Lake. I think Paul noted last meeting when I was at a conference that 135 East Lake has not, that closed. That was closed. The closing on 111 should be next week, 111 North Lafayette. Complete restorations of the buildings. The Planning Commission will be involved, looking at, especially with the RCA building. We'll drop the 135 title. Everybody knows the one RCA building, the stone building. But it's exciting that both owners are committing to complete restoration of the buildings. and using historical photographs. And so actually they'll be using the same architect, Brad Alvord, who's here in the audience tonight. Outstanding work, and so we're looking at those projects moving forward. Great time. We finally are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. So that's all I have, unless there are questions.
Councilmember Parisian, go ahead.
Hi, Bob. How are you? So does the farmer's market kick off this week?
May 4th.
May 4th. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else with anything for Bob this evening? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
On to old business number 1, second reading of wireless facilities in public rights-of-way ordinance. Tim?
Mr. Mayor and Council, so this is the second reading of a wireless facilities in the right-of-way ordinance. I do want to start with, there have been some revisions to the ordinance based on the discussion at the last council meeting. They are primarily related to aesthetics, location, spacing, and underground standards. As I've explained, and you've received some communication, privileged communication, there is a confusion, an inconsistency between the federal and state laws on this particular topic. But generally, between the two of them, with respect to aesthetics, they must be reasonable, no more, the aesthetic requirements must be reasonable, no more burdensome than those applied to other infrastructure deployments, objective, and published in advance. Aesthetic requirements that are technically feasible and reasonably directed to avoiding and remedying the intangible public harm of unsightly or out-of-character deployments may be permissible. They do not need to identify every specification to be mandated in every structure in every neighborhood, but you must set forth objective criteria and standards that can be applied in a principled manner at a sufficiently clear level of detail to enable providers to design and propose deployments that comply with the city's standards. So the idea here is to the federal government and state government have decided that they're going to shove this down on you. You're losing some control over the ability to say no to these structures in your right-of-way. We are putting in place an ordinance that will allow you a certain level of control over what these look like, where they're located. And does anybody have, I do have some revisions in the red line that was included in the packet. They start on page 8 in section 8757. There's a reference on 8757 sub 2, and there's a reference to this illustrations. I did not put those together for a number of reasons. Having read and done some additional research, I don't know that we need to attach those or that it's a good idea. I also, looking at other communities, I got concerned about copyright issues about using their photographs and drawings. But we have an idea of what we're looking for. In the same section, sub 18, I believe should be deleted altogether as it is more specifically addressed in 17. So new and replacement support structures and poles, you want them to be these smart poles and have the equipment installed and contained inside the poles. And 875730 sub small Roman I, there's an and that needs to be corrected. In 31 small Roman I, I'm proposing to eliminate in the third line existing development or utility facility site, and it would continue on, or type of support structure or utility pole would be added before is feasible. In the same, in the next subsection, 31 small Roman 2, I would eliminate the word tower. We don't want any towers in the city of South Lyon for wireless services. Those are the specific amendments or revisions that I would make. If there are questions or if you would like me to go through some of the revisions, I'd be happy to do that.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Tim, I appreciate you taking another look at this and addressing the construction standards we talked about in the last meeting, because I think that's what really needs to happen, is all of the wiring, the auxiliary equipment, to the best extent possible, need to be contained within that monopole, okay, as opposed to be hung on the outside of the thing. So I think you've done a good job of specifying that. I appreciate you doing that.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, so you posed some very good questions, and I have not been working on this by myself. We have a couple of people that really did the deep dive on this, and they were very impressed and troubled by the questions you raised. So one of the things in looking at this is there's a style of doing this where you take existing wood or utility poles, light poles, and so forth, and attach the boxes and equipment to the outside. Those are not very attractive, and the problem we have is that you want to be careful about totally prohibiting those things unless it's technically infeasible. So I want you to understand that we've added those things to try and address the appearance and aesthetic issues. Please understand that these could be challenged. There is a safety valve in the ordinance, and also in doing the research for these aesthetics, I came across some communities that had used preferences to designate, we want these things, if they're going to be here, these are the places we would rather have them, these are the places we don't want them. And for the protection, the areas you don't want them is primarily your residential districts, then your DDA, and specifically your cross streets of Lafayette and Lake Street. We want to try and keep these off of your main street and out of your residential areas. Whether that's truly doable from a technology standpoint, I don't have the answer to. And if you may get challenged on that, and you do have some flexibility to require undergrounding where possible. If they do put up poles, there are regulations dictating where they can be located with respect to the houses, the lot lines, other utility poles to the extent they exist, trees and so forth. So these are all an attempt to try and control as much as you can the aesthetics of these in your community.
Councilmember Kill, go ahead.
I actually thought you did a really good job with the pecking order of the least favorable locations, or the things that we would least like to see, and the locations that those places would end up being most protected. I thought that was a great idea. I thought that the most likely way this thing will roll out, though, is depending on where you're at in the community, that they're going to seize the existing poles first, rather than building all from new infrastructure.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, so there is a given, there's pressure and conflict between the concept of promoting co-location, whether on existing or new poles. Typically, it's the existing. It's going to be a cheaper option typically. Attach it to an existing pole, strap my boxes on, and I'm out of here.
Precisely.
The preference I heard from council was to use more aesthetic camouflaging concealment measures by using the monopoles or smart poles. And I think you must recognize that by doing that, you may be promoting more poles ultimately.
Proliferation, yeah.
The question will be whether the industry, and I don't have the answer to this, whether the industry buys into the idea of replacing the existing poles and using the same location rather than putting up new poles.
Well, you lose the benefit of the cost savings then. I mean, if you're going to be relocating everybody's existing hardware on the new pole, just so that you have a little bit more height or whatever to be able to use your own technology, you've given up the savings that, well, it should end up being relatively parallel cost just to put in a new structure.
I don't know the finance and what drives this industry on the co-location, not co-location. We've got some experience with DTE pushing back on these wireless providers and not allowing them to use their poles. Some of that is driven by the safety and the distance that's required. This equipment has to be distanced from the electric lines that are hot. there's a lot of moving parts, so we've tried to provide, I think these are all reasonable and good things. You've identified where you would like these things, where you don't want them, what they need to look like generally. Those appear to be, under the law, enforceable standards, but again, these could always be challenged, and there is also a waiver procedure that's provided for in the ordinance.
Councilmember Kennedy?
And again, Tim, when we were talking about this in the last meeting, the discussion was more primarily geared toward those areas within the city that don't have any poles at all right now, okay? Primarily the residential areas that are subject to underground utilities, okay? So there are no poles to latch onto. There are no poles for co-location. So if they're going to put a pole in, this is the type of pole we're looking for that's going to be unobtrusive, okay? And will blend with the surroundings, okay? So it's not telling them to take down the existing poles and put this in its place. There are no poles to begin with, and if they're going to come in and they're going to put a pole in, we're trying to ensure that it's as reasonably acceptable as possible.
Right, so you'll see in the language the new and replacement poles, you're looking at primarily the new poles.
Right.
If they are required and there's no other option to provide the service in that location.
I'll make the motion to approve the second reading of the wireless facilities and the rights of way ordinance amending Chapter 87 of the City of South Lyon Code of Ordinances to reorganize existing sections 87-1 through 87-21 as Article 1 and to add Article 2, Sections 87-51 through 87-68.
I'll support.
As revised?
As revised, yes.
I'll support.
Thanks.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kennedy, supported by Councilmember Kivel. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Move on to new business this evening. Number 1, resolution establishing fees for wireless facilities, wireless support structures, and utility poles in public rights of way.
Mr. Mayor and Council. So we just spent some time on this ordinance. The statutes, federal and state, dictate the annual fees for locating these facilities on the poles or in your right-of-way. This is a resolution to set the one-time permitting type fees when they come in to do this work. These are reasonable estimates, and I've talked with the city manager about the possibility that these may need to be tweaked based on further information or experience with the industry in processing these applications. But these are reasonable and are designed to not run afoul of the statutes.
Councilmember Kivel, go
Is
ahead.
there any sense of what that schedule might end up being to consolidate and proof out what those numbers are?
We represent.
Because, I mean, if somebody, suggests that they're ready to pull a permit, I mean, we need to be prepared, so, or put in an application, I should say.
Can you repeat the question?
Is there a sense of how long it'll be before we validate whether or not these numbers seem to be the price point that we need to have?
I really don't have an answer for that.
Do you have a better sense of that, Paul?
No, I think these fees, are established based upon the conversations that I've had with the city attorney. And what I'd like to do in future fees is the city adopt a new fee schedule every single year, so we can make adjustments based upon the industry, what may come up, not only regarding this, but building department fees and everything else. So I think some of these things will probably, as Tim states, kind of shake out over the next so many months as some of these things or permits do in fact come about, perhaps maybe in other communities.
Well, I like that idea, except for at our last meeting, it was sort of suggested that if we change down the roads, if somebody ends up taking a permit out, that'll end up being the benchmark. If we end up changing the number downstream, everybody will be fighting to say, we're not going to accept that number. You gave it to those guys for that much.
Well, I think it's just like any other fee that we have at the city, they do change. And I would like to bring, as established as a policy, to have fee schedule come before council every single year for adoption.
I think that the rest of the schedule is valid to do that. When you're talking about things that are federally mandated on us, you get into a little bit more touchy environment.
Mr. Mayor.
Tim, go ahead.
If I can add, so the concept that Councilmember Kiverill has raised is related to the aesthetic, spacing, and other appearance regulations, where it's a possible interpretation under the federal statute that if you start in one place and try to get more restrictive over time, you may raise the possibility of an argument that you've treated different users differently at different points in time without a rational basis for doing so.
So if we could validate the fee schedule by these are actually what our costs are to produce that.
Right, and that interpretation
makes sense.
doesn't apply to the actual fees that would be
Right.
incurred to process the
Okay,
applications.
all right, thank you. I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution establishing fees for wireless facilities, wireless support structures, and utility poles in public right-of-way as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kivel, supported by Councilmember Walton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Move on to new business number 2 this evening, acceptance of the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority grant for a thermal imaging camera. Chief?
Mayor, first want to address Councilman Kibble. That was a bad fuel injector. Mention two. I misspoke.
Okay, thanks.
Back in October, when the city manager came, he found a grant through the Michigan Risk, suggested that we look into it. So Chief Weir and I sat down and we saw that they would fund a thermal imager camera. Well, ours is broke, and we were going to put it in next year's budget, and I said, well, this is perfect. So we submitted it in late October. We found out about 2 weeks ago we got the grant. So I'm asking that you accept the grant. It's a 50-50 grant, so it's saving the city about $4,500.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Questions?
I'll make the motion to, sorry. Mr.
Yep.
Mayor.
Councilmember Walton, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll make the motion to accept the authority, the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority grant for the thermal imaging camera.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nice job, Paul and Chief, on
Yeah.
that.
Chief Weir also?
And Chief Weir, thank you.
Mhm.
At this point, we'll move on to new business number 3 this evening. Budget amendment to move $4,264.93 from capital equipment 335-000-978 to equipment 335-000-977 to cover the cost of the new thermal imaging camera and increase 101-000-698.6 $4,265.00.
So this is the complicated part. You all approved $85,000 for the ladder truck this year. We only used 10. It's a complicated story, but the truck is working great. So we are out of equipment fund. So to purchase this piece of equipment, I'm asking that we take 4,200-ish out of this fund, move it over here, so it's no additional cost to taxpayers. And then Lori made me add this part about accepting the additional money as the grant, as the income. Any questions on that?
When you get something half off, you always take it and do what you have to.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the budget amendment to move $4,264.93 from capital equipment 335-000-978 to equipment 335-000-977 to cover the cost of new thermal imaging camera and increase 101-000.000-698.6 by $4,265. I'll get it out eventually.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Thank you very much.
Just one
Good
other
work,
thing
guys.
before-
Yeah.
Chief, if I could, just on
Yeah.
a separate subject, I mean, you got this grant along with the grant that you got from the state of Michigan and Home Depot for the carbon monoxide alarms and the smoke detectors as well. Do you have an update on where we stand as far as distributing those to the residents
It
of the
has
city?
been chaotic, I can tell you that. We are literally in Colonial Acres 5 to 7 times a day.
Okay.
It's been very beneficial. What we're finding is they have phase 3, 4, 5 have hardwired, but they don't have any in the basement. The concern is that's where the utilities are, the hot water heater, the furnace. So we've been installing, everybody who calls is getting at least 1 or 2. The CO alarms were just about out, so we won't be able to give much more of those. We're still waiting to get some calls from Lyon Woods, so I think what we're going to do is just, on a nice day, I'm just going to try to find if there's children and then just send them out into the neighborhood. We're probably over 50% now.
Okay.
I came back from Florida and the state of Michigan with the grant makes me input every one installed, and it's very time consuming, so I'm going to guess when it's probably by tomorrow, we'll probably be did about 125, 150.
Good.
So
Okay.
still getting calls.
Great.
So
It's good.
That's great.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, on to new business number 4, Corner Cafe liquor license.
I'll introduce it if I, Mr. Mayor. We have received information and requests from the Corner Cafe to obtain the city's last remaining quota liquor license. They have previously come before City Council regarding their request, and they have submitted additional information outlining their planned improvements. Their plan and location outline is included, floor plans, lease information. We've also included the liquor license ordinance, inspection reports, letters of review from our consultants at CIB, letters from the Economic Development Director, Water and Sewer Department. We've also included an updated resolution for your review. My recommendation for council is a conditional approval with the liquor license being transferred after improvements have been made to the leased space. The applicants are here tonight, and I believe the city attorney is going to introduce a couple other items here before they get started.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I just want to point out, so you've been provided a copy of the liquor license ordinance. I want to highlight real quickly Section 8-36E. The council can approve with or without conditions. It can postpone, it can deny. So there is no requirement that you approve this. Simply, there's no reason to respond that you have to approve it simply because someone's asking for it. This is your last quota license. I believe, based on the revised and the original resolution, you should gather that there's been quite a bit of material submitted in support of the application. It's been fully evaluated by the staff, and the revised resolution is the staff's recommendation on how council should proceed with this.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Okay, so I think the last time we met was about September of 2018.
That's correct.
And we went through and we had a lot of questions at the time, and a number of those have been answered. One of the questions that was raised at the time was looking at the lease that's here, items number 2 and 4 on the lease that's currently in effect with the applicants here, where it states that the lessee shall use and occupy the premises for a cafe/coffee shop. The premises shall be used for no other purpose. The lessor represents the premises may lawfully be used for such purpose. And then number 4 is, the lessee shall not, without first obtaining the written consent of the lessor, make any alterations or improvements into or about the premises. So we said, well, okay, sounds like we need a letter from the building owner saying that he's in agreement with this. Now, I've heard all kinds of verbal assurances that he's in agreement with it, but at the time we asked for a copy of that written support. Now, that's not what's in that isn't in the package at all, so that did not come back. And most of the package is pretty much what we went through back in September, short of, we updated some signatures. We have the architectural layouts now, and we have an additional picture of the inside of a wine bar. And then we have the two phases of which, and I'm kind of concerned there, I'm kind of confused, I guess, more than anything else. It says Phase 1 and Phase 2, and yet the statement on the next page says total estimated investment over 3 phases. So I'm not sure where the third phase is or what the third phase consists of. This is on page 2 of your business plan / timeline. It says total estimated investment over 3 phases, 140 to 250,000.
Well, originally it was a 3-phase business plan that was modified into 2 phases. So I think that's what happened when it got.
So that's a typo then?
That was a typo. It was originally 3 phases, and we modified it into 2
Okay.
phases. In regards to the lease, I know that there are verbal assurances. I do know that the landowner does know what's going on. He is fully supportive of that. There has been no pushback, of course, from him. I think what I want to point out to the council members here today is kind of what the city attorney has already started to address, and that is that the focus certainly is going to be, I believe at least, on the review criteria in the ordinance, in the liquor license ordinance. That is Section 8-36, Section F. That is what this council has to look at tonight. It does outline the review criteria when approving, if they're going to approve this liquor license. And as you're looking through that review criteria, you're going to see a lot of things in there in terms of some of the items include the surrounding land area for this establishment and if it will comport with the different businesses around. It asks you to look at the applicant's history. It asks you to look at her financial credentials. And I don't think any of that's at question. I think we all know that Rhonda Bufano has been in this community for decades. She has invested in this community for decades. I don't think there's any question in terms of her criminal history or anything about the applicant, so I'm going to jump right to what I feel is probably the most pertinent review factor in the ordinance, and that is what everybody's looking for. What's the benefit to the community by granting this liquor license to the Corner Cafe? You know, that is probably the most relevant factor that is before you, that you want to be convinced before you're willing to approve something like this. And personally, I'm going to give a lot of credit to Bob Donahue. Bob Donahue was the one who everybody wanted to consult with. When we were back here at the fall proposing this same pitch, really what ended up happening is the council said, let's table this discussion, and we want to hear a little bit more about what Bob Donahue has to say. And since that time, he has submitted a recommendation to council that is in your packet. And now I know why. I know why the council came back with that. He has decades of experience, 40 years of experience in the downtown revitalization. And if you look at his recommendation, he specifically states, a wine bar provides a key ingredient for an optimal business mix for the downtown. He says that it meets market demand confirmed by the Small Business Center in a market analysis for South Lyon that was published in, I believe, November of 2016. And I agree with him on all these points. He further states it's going to complement the other restaurants in the downtown. And it's going to help upscale restaurants and other businesses come forward to the community and bring them in. So looking at all of that, I feel if you look at that review criteria in the ordinance, we feel that it does. There is a prevailing need to grant this liquor license, a demand from the community. It's going to be something fresh and exciting, something that South Lyon needs that we don't have. And we've brought a team here tonight to answer a lot of your questions. We have the architect, Mr. Alvord, to answer anything more specifically about what the building and the renovations that are going to be done. There has been some concern over what the building department has said and those needs, and he can certainly answer how those are going to be addressed. Rhonda Bufano is here tonight. She can answer some very specifics in terms of what she's looking at doing and recreating the inside of the establishment. So we're here tonight, all of us, to garner your support, to ask for the approval, and to certainly answer your questions. So with that being said, I'm asking if there was any further specific questions from council.
I still think that Steve's question is pertinent. Can you get your landlord to supply that information? I mean, that's pretty straightforward, so.
Councilmember Kimball, or excuse me, Kurtzwell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to see a presentation I mean, I would like to have someone come up here and discuss the layout, how it's going to look. I would like Ms. Bufano to come up here, and I'd like to hear what your vision is for how this facility, how this place is going to look. So I would like a little bit of a presentation. I think that's very important.
Gets kick-started. Again, my name's Brad Alborn. I'm with Lindau Associate Architects out of Brighton. Rodney came to us, what was that, probably a couple months ago in the fall, and really the existing layout would stay the same. I know the first letter that she came to us with had a whole bunch of ADA concerns, accessibility, so that was our very first assessment that took place. The beauty of this building is being a downtown building and an older historic like that, you basically have two ADA accessible entrances already coming in. You have one up at the higher level and the lower level, and there is an existing ramp in place. There's some modifications that need to take place to that. We need to add a handrail. We need to provide the proper extensions. But the accessibility from the lower level to the upper level is there. At that time, there was a separate tenant that was taking place up above at the raised area, and it's my understanding that they're no longer part of the program moving forward. So the whole space will be basically just the wine coffee shop use. Right now, it is an existing A2 assembly use, and within A2, there's a couple different categories. One is a restaurant, the second being a bar. So that's what we would be moving into, but again, it's an A2. And we went through accessibility. There's some modifications that need to take place for the toilet rooms. Just by running the calc when we originally did it, I believe the occupant load could have been 86 people, or 80 people, sorry. 80 people is what would fit per the plumbing fixtures are there, half for male, half for female. I know working with the building department, the idea of the 48 occupants from a code standpoint, that provides us a lot of benefits. The historic doors that are in place and the historic swings on the front, those can remain as is. The hardware can remain the same. We don't have to put closers and panic devices on all of that or change any swings. So there is benefits to that 48. And really, so it's minor modifications. I know there was some concerns with the residential use up above. So I think the biggest overhaul of the project would be adding the 2 layers of 5/8 gyp to the ceiling. From a construction standpoint, that'll probably be the hardest and sequencing standpoint. But it will provide a fire barrier to that upper layer above. And so I think everything is in place from a renovation standpoint. It's a decent amount of work, but I think Rhonda has a vision in terms of the interior, how she wants it, wine bottles on display, and I'm guessing like heavier lighting, maybe the ceiling would get a little bit of a darker tone and really give that subtle feel. I think it would be a great addition to the downtown. People are stopping to eat, coming out. Right there in the corner, you couldn't have a better location. I'll let Rhonda speak if she got any addition.
I mean, I think he said what we were looking at is maybe toward, the back area being a little bit darker, smaller cocktail tables with white tablecloths on them, wine racks along the sides, but keeping that back area kind of primarily for the wine bar area. Mm-hmm. And then, the front, keeping that a little bit more cozy like we have with, soft seating and so people can come in and have their meetings during the day, but kind of change it up more for the evening hours.
All right, we got a line up here, so we'll start with Councilmember Parisian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I vetted this out in the community, and I've heard nothing but good things. So especially from girlfriends that live in South Lyon or the surrounding community, there is no wine bar. There's nothing that we can go to, and we can go grab a coffee, sure, but there's nowhere to go and just chat and grab a glass of wine. So this is going to be a hit. I couldn't be more excited for this to come to the community. I think Bob is an excellent resource because he has those years of experience to help provide the insight. I mean, his recommendation alone, coupled with the city managers, I think has made my decision pretty easy today. So thank you for investing in the community. Thank you for being versatile. I think in order to be successful in business, you have to be marketable, and this is the best way to make it marketable.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the fire department is cool with two layers of fire coat on the ceiling? My only concern is we've got this historic downtown. You don't recreate that if something goes south, so they didn't insist on sprinkling even the kitchen?
Well, there's language in the code. If she has any open cooktop, and basically her cooktop is limited to like a panini maker, that it's very similar to like a tropical smoothie type application. So
Right.
there is really no open flame. So that requirement we were able to check off on my response letter. The 48 occupants, again, there's a part in the building code, there's 3 criteria you can meet to get outside of the fire suppression. By putting that lid on, it's separating and it's reducing our fire area. So the 3 points, and I've got the section here, but basically if you were under 5,000 square feet, which the makeshift non-accessible basement combined with our first floor plan would put us right at about 4,500, so we'd be under the 5. If you're under 50 or under 100 occupants, and the area in question is at grade level, all 3 of those combined, if you didn't miss any of those, you would be forced into suppression. They give you that category just for this historic, but so I think the suggestion of the 48, once you keep researching that, there's a lot of validity to that, and it really makes sense here. To reduce occupant load, you're increasing the life safety of the existing building. It's an A2 use right now with very limited separation, so we are increasing the life safety for the residents above. I think it's that occupant load. If it was getting any higher, or our original analysis when we were up to 80, that would have probably taken us out of that exception on that.
Well, Rhonda, can you intersperse electronic candles with the real candles in there?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
So back on the 3rd of August, the Water and Wastewater Department identified some code violations, cross connections. Have those been addressed?
Those have been, yes.
The other question I have, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So when I look at Phase 2, the first item under Phase 2 is obtain the liquor license and open the wine bar. My understanding is that's going to happen after Phase 2 is completed.
Yes.
Not at the beginning of Phase 2.
Right.
After all the furniture has been replaced with the fire retardant furniture, and the bar is basically set for a certificate of occupancy and ready to do business.
Correct.
That's when the liquor license would be granted.
Correct.
So everybody's on the same page with that, correct?
Yes, along with extended hours. You know,
Right.
Phase 2 has extended hours in there too, but that wouldn't go into effect.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell?
Thank you. I was on board with this project a year ago. I did my research a year ago. And a year ago, everyone I spoke to wanted a wine bar downtown South Lyon. And there were several reasons. Is that there are a lot of activities that are going on where the kids are playing baseball at McKinney Park. They're over in Volunteer Park, possibly doing soccer. Some of the parents have their kids in the dance studio over in King Plaza. And the parents kind of were looking for a place where they could sort of come in, have a glass of wine and relax while their kids are out there, enjoying South Lyon. Additionally, you have individuals who are attending meetings, both with the school district and city of South Lyon, that would like to meet ahead of time and sit down and have a glass of wine, and not a heavy dinner, and have an opportunity to just sort of converse and enjoy each other's company or plan for whatever meeting they're going to. I, for one, am an avid supporter of the Lyon Theater, and I was just there this weekend, and it would have been wonderful to leave that movie and it gone over and sat down with friends and had a glass of wine and enjoy one of your Cucchiair boards that you're going to have. So I did the research. So I've been on board with this project from day one. And I do want to let you know, I don't think anybody else has come to the city asking for this liquor license. So I think the wisdom is that you're here. And I don't think there's any necessity to make you wait anymore. I think the demand is definitely there. I got to tell you, there were people at Christmas time that would love to have gone in a cozy, warm little environment to just stop in and have a glass of wine and get on with their day during the holidays. It would have been wonderful. So I am in favor of this, and I know there are many other people that are in favor of this that want this here. Many of my friends in the surrounding townships and areas have come to me and said, we hear this is coming up, you have to. And I said, I've been on board for over a year on this project. So I hope that it goes through, and I wish you well on your endeavors. And any motion that's being made tonight can be made contingent upon getting a written authorization from the landlord, because as you know, you can't make improvements to a leasehold. You want to make sure that all the money that is being invested is going to be agreed to. So I think that is a fair requirement. And I think we could make the motion tonight contingent upon receiving that letter that satisfies. I want to make sure that the landlord has looked at the plans, understands what the architectural plans are, and kind of jump through that hoop. But other than that, I'd like to say welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Councilmember Walton, go ahead.
I have to agree with both the ladies up here tonight that sometimes we just want to go out and have a nice glass of wine with our friends and not a loud bar environment. You know, where we can actually talk and have a conversation. And sometimes you want to do that with your guy friends too. It doesn't really matter. But the point is I am also on board, so I'm really excited about this.
Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
I do want to thank you for your exceeding efforts trying to make sure that you can expand your business footprint in the city. I'm loving the fact that you've been working so well with all the department heads and the administration and stuff to get this done. I just have two little questions. The lease, the idea that it renews in 21, is that pretty much bulletproof that you would have to stop paying or something to default on your ability to re-up the lease?
Yeah, I think so. I think we could probably extend it.
Well, I don't want to rely on you probably can. I'd like an absolute assurance that,
Okay.
save for your failure of performance or failure of payment, that you would be obligated to, or the landlord would be obligated to extend that lease.
Okay.
And secondly, there was a mention in the comments that CIB the planners had put in the packet regarding the signage. Do you still intend to modify your signage?
Yes.
Is that going to take place during the course of the transition?
Yes.
Okay, so make sure that you end up getting all the applications, permits, and all that stuff go.
Absolutely. Understood.
Yeah, okay. All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Parisian.
Is there additional comment? Because I'd like to make the motion. Okay, great. I'd like to make the motion to approve the conditional approval of the liquor license for the Corner Cafe.
I'll second.
We have a motion.
Discussion.
Oh, yep.
I'd like to,
Councilmember
first I'd like to move for an amendment.
Okay.
I'd like to amend the motion to include that the motion be contingent upon the city's receipt of a written approval from the applicant's landlord regarding all improvements planned and anticipated within 10 days of tonight's motion.
Second.
Second?
I could second that.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Thank
Motion
you.
passes.
Well, that was the amendment.
Yes.
Now you need to do your motion. Need to do your motion.
It's not clumsy enough yet.
So now we need a second, we need another motion.
Now you need to do
Yeah.
your actual motion,
Yeah,
because
but
I amended it.
Include the language. Okay, so let's try this again. I'll make the motion to approve the conditional improvement of the liquor license for the Corner Cafe based upon all the provisions that were just asked of you
Yes.
And I'll
to be
second.
included.
we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor,
Tim?
is this a motion to approve the revised resolution and give the conditional approval as outlined in the revised resolution?
Correct.
With the additional
with-
obligation of providing
Councilmember
the
Kurtzwell also
landlord
said-
The additional
permissions,
continuance.
yes.
Correct.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Thanks a
Thank
lot,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Great job. Move on to the budget this evening. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let the city manager know that I have spent some time doing some research regarding budget amendments And it may not necessarily apply tonight, but it may apply if we pass a mill that is specific to a category in the budget. So let's say, for example, and Tim, you might agree or whatever, let's say that we decide to pass a 0.2 of a mill to support Parks and Recs, and that mill goes through. I think that the truth in taxing requires that you have to disclose what that mill is being used for if you're going to raise a mill. Is that correct, Tim?
I can't answer that off the top of my head.
Okay, it might. And the reason I'm bringing it up is why we probably should do just a little bit of research on this, and I've already started on it because an interesting issue came up on another city, is when you do an amendment to your budget, you have to make sure that you're not moving funds that are, you can't amend the budget and move money that was approved by the taxpayers for parks into another category if you need money, if you're looking for money. So I think that's why I'm bringing it up, because that is a problem that another community I think is running into, is that they were moving money around like within categories of their budget, and I think there might be a taxpayer challenge to that amendment because there was a specific mill for one of those categories, and it's now being moved into a category that was not specifically disclosed at the time the mill was granted. So I want to bring that up. I think do you follow me, Tim? Yeah, on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that may be addressed through the uniform account numbering system that's used, and whether there may be ways to address that. But I tend to agree with the concept, yes.
Okay.
I think that sounds right.
Okay, so I just thought I would bring that up. Just, I don't think it's an emergency, but I think it's something I think is coming on the radar. And so I know I'll be doing my research on it and following it from there. So, thank you.
I just wanted to update council because we did have our budget meeting last week, Mr. Mayor, that some of you were unable to attend the meeting, so we went through some changes that were part of the original submittal that all of you received regarding the proposed budget for the 2019-20 year. And if any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to sit down with you and go over some of those things. But my projection is by the first meeting in May that we would have all these items worked out. We'll provide the updated budget to you within the next couple of weeks. And when you have the opportunity to review that, we could potentially make changes at that particular meeting and still have the proposed adoption by the second meeting in May, which is required by the city.
I spoke with Councilmember Richards today, and I think he would appreciate probably having a small window of time to go over some things with you. But other than that, that's great. All right, we'll move on to the manager's report.
I itemized a couple items within my report. One talked about regarding Thomasville. We're trying to get some of those details worked out because we had some items submitted to the city and to the city attorney, and we were not clear based upon those comments with those individuals on what the proposed changes were being. We're not going to allow those changes that could drastically change what the master deed or bylaws that were originally submitted and approved. So we'll be bringing that before you at another date. That's why it was not on this past meeting, this meeting schedule. I also itemized for you that I have a meeting with the Road Commission of Oakland County regarding some of their strategic plans, long-term priorities, and as well as evaluation of services that we have. And that meeting is going to be taking place this week. And the last item, I wanted to acknowledge city departments, specifically Chief Vogel and his efforts and his staff in pursuing our initiative for getting additional grants for the city. That was the second one and probably the third grant we received just this year over the last 6 months. And it's continuing efforts by our staff, and we'll continue to pursue those dollars any way we possibly can. And to acknowledge what was discussed during our budget meeting regarding did have a staff member attend a recent grant writing class. And when those become available, we're going to try to get other people to attend those. But she's a good person to assist the other staff members in trying to look out for grants wherever we can. And that's all I have.
Great. Anyone with anything for Paul? Thanks, Paul. At this point, we'll open the floor for public comment. Please state your name and address. We will close public comment. At this time, we'll move on to our council comments this evening. Councilmember Kennedy, why don't you start us off?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of items this evening. First, the mobile Secretary of State office is going to be at the Salem South Lyon District Library on Wednesday, April 17th from 12 o'clock to 6 p.m. And this will allow anyone to stop by and change your address, update your voter registration, sign up on the Michigan Donor Registry, or order a replacement vehicle title. So stop in and take care of those items that you want to address. And secondly, I just want to reemphasize what Oakland County Commissioner Phil Weipert mentioned earlier, is that the Kiwanis will be holding their annual Easter egg scramble at Volunteer Park on Saturday, April 20th from 10:30 till 1:30. In addition to the scramble for the goodie-filled eggs, there will be displays from the South Lyon Police and Fire Departments, as well as the Lyon Township Fire Department and the Oakland County Sheriff. So come on out, bring the kids, and I'm sure they'll have a great time checking out the vehicles and the displays there, as well as grabbing the eggs and the candy that's inside. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really don't have much to say tonight, other than I'm really excited about the Corner Cafe, and they are a great compliment to our community, and bringing in a wine bar is fantastic. Like it was stated, it's a market demand, so I'm really excited for that opportunity in South Lyon. Other than that, everyone have a great night.
Thank you, Councilmember Walton. Councilmember Parisian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple things. So we mentioned the Easter egg hunt, but we didn't mention the stuffing. That was mentioned briefly. So the Easter egg stuffing is going to be this coming Monday, which is the 15th at 6 p.m. at the Kiwanis Center. Additionally, council packets are now available. So if you are interested in running, or if you know anyone who's interested in running for mayor and or council, pick up your packets at City Hall. They're not due until the 23rd of July at 4 p.m. But I would encourage everyone to stay abreast of what's new in the community, what's going on in our local government, and if you do have an interest, run. And lastly, the citywide cleanup is normally the third weekend of May, and then, citywide is normally the third weekend of May in the past week. Oh, I guess we're not doing that? Are we not doing the citywide cleanup?
We're still trying to get organization, but City Clerk can comment.
Well, never mind.
Excuse me. It usually ends up being a few of the DPW guys and me and Judy. Lori's assisted with cooking before, as some of you. But as of right now, the person that organized everybody from Oak Point is not there anymore. And he gave us a number to contact somebody else, and we've yet to hear back from them.
Okay, well,
So
keep
it
us
looks like
posted.
we might have to skip it this year.
Okay. Well, it's a bummer.
I know.
We have no one else to step up.
We've had no other volunteers, and really just for the few amount of people, other than the Oak Point church members that used to help us, we would never get it finished. I mean, it's a lot of work.
That is, yeah, it's a lot, especially for like the 3 people that help out. Okay, well, good to know. And with that,
If you know of it, I mean, if anybody wants to volunteer, we haven't canceled it officially. We still have time to order supplies, we just don't have enough people at this point.
well, I know a restaurant that would be willing to supply the burgers. Outback did a couple years ago, so they would probably do that again too. But with that, so if you know anybody who's willing to help out with the cleanup, spread the word. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Parisian. Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to remind everyone that the Longevity 5K Walk Run is scheduled for May 18th with registration at McCaddy's Park. Please, if you can, please attend. If you can't, or if you don't want to walk, and if you don't want to run because you're not a runner, I'd like to remind everyone that there are opportunities to donate to the Longevity Foundation. And I'd like to thank, once again, David Elkins and his wife for their incredible commitment to this very, very important cause. Next, we've mentioned the Kiwanis Easter egg hunt. I think it's also important to recognize Phil Weipert and Abe AU for their countless hours that they spend prepping for this particular event. I've attended this, I think, about every year that they've had. It's over in Volunteer Park. It's just a wonderful, wonderful event, and the kids absolutely love it. So please, I'm sure that Phil and Abe could use a couple of donations of Easter eggs and some chocolate candy as they stuff those eggs. So don't forget to donate to the Kiwanis also for the Easter egg hunt. I'd also like to thank the officers and directors and the countless volunteers of the South Lyon Area Youth Assistance for their incredible commitment to the community. I am familiar with some of the students who have been awarded scholarships through this program. This is an absolutely incredible, incredible organization with people with hearts that are just so big. You can't imagine that people like this are even around in this world today. These are wonderful individuals to be around. These are incredible students to be around. And I want to thank all the kids' parents that provide support to their children as they move through the South Lyon Area Youth Assistance and the many programs that they have. Last, I'd like to welcome, as we talked tonight about a corner cafe as it transitions into a wine bar, but I think we also need to welcome Glazy Days to their new home in King Plaza. I can't tell you how many people are excited about the move. It's closer to 9 Mile. The subdivisions, the people that I spoke to over the weekend are just brimming with enthusiasm that Glazy Days is coming a little bit closer with a little bit more convenient parking and a larger facility. So I expect to be there with my friends. We already have some ideas of what we want to do in there in terms of pottery we want to make. So let's make this an incredible, incredible welcome for Glazy Days as they move into King Plaza. I believe it's sometime this month, the middle of the month. So good night, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kurtzwell. I just want to thank everyone from the city and the department heads that helped get all of our information together for the budget meeting at the end of the week last week. Paul, I thought you did a great job keeping us all on task. Very informative and went very well. So thank you to everyone that helped with that. Secondly, I just want to thank everyone also at City Hall and all of you up here and Councilmember Kurtzwell for shouldering the load as I was out of the country 2 weeks ago. And so thank you. That's all. Councilmember Kivell, do you have something?
I do.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I agree that I thought the construction or the budget meeting was very constructive, well organized, well laid out, and I thought it was very productive. So I was grateful to see us get back on a track that gives us hope that we actually are going to know what on earth we're doing, because we've had a couple of years there where it was sort of just a roll of the dice. Yesterday I was able to attend the Music at the Library. That was a little jazz trio that played right in the area where they used to have the DVDs and things of that nature. So it was real cute, and apparently this is going to be a monthly occurrence. I don't know if that's simply during the summer or if it's more extended than that, but I was grateful to have an hour to just go, and even though I had to cut away from my grandson for a minute, but it was a real nice hour spent over there, some real nice people. I was kind of curious, the website and email, is there any sense of when that'll be back up and running?
Well, we had problems on Saturday and also Sunday when you came in today. Probably you looked at it as well. And we had it up and running, went down, had some work being done on it, but it was back up a couple hours ago, so hopefully it's still up right now.
Okay.
So
Last time I looked,
that's
there
down
was
again?
nothing.
Okay, it's down again.
Oh, okay.
We addressed the issue regarding the renewal, and that was one of the issues that they said.
Oh, it
they were
was,
fixing,
okay,
so.
because I thought maybe it had been hacked or something, so, yeah.
Yeah, it was not. It had to do with the renewal.
Oh, that's good. Okay. And as to the beautification thing, if we can get Ron Beeson and the boys to end up getting some mulch down to the DPW and give me access to it, I'll go around every doggone entrance sign. Give me some flowers, give me some mulch. I'll take care of those, and we'll work our way over to Baker Park. So I'm sure that there'll be people that would be only too happy if we can to create a schedule, they'd show up. So, and if they don't, I guess I'll be working a little longer. So, I do it every year. It's a great time, and it's unfortunate that Rod, wasn't that his name? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was a great bunch of people, and I couldn't be more grateful for all the help that they had given us for so many years there. But nonetheless, everything changes, so we can just adjust and get something else going. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Lisa, you had something?
I just wanted to point out the website is up right now.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll stay that way.
Excellent.
We are aware of the issues, and we are hounding people about it. So, but with that, we'll wrap it up tonight, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Have a great night, all.
You too.
I didn't hear you belly grumble once, or maybe it was my
I ate a hot dog before I came here. I usually don't eat anything.
Oh man, I've been in back-to-back meetings all day. I was about to fall asleep. I was like, what's going on?